All right. Tyrion. Okay, so let's see. Last time we saw Tyrion in Storm of Swords, chapter 66, Tyrion 9, to be precise. He was in his cell, Tyrion Lannister, awaiting his fate. And the trial isn't over, as there's one more surprise witness Cersei has promised to bring. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So anyway, like in a proper courtroom drama type thing. You're all out of order. You can't handle the truth. But the public prosecutor here is Cersei. It's not one of those cases, of like the people versus Tyrion Lannister. It's Cersei who accuses Tyrion. She's the one who ordered the King's Guard to arrest him. Oh wait, unless we see Cersei as like in the capacity of Queen Mother, sort of a representative of the crown of the Seven Kingdoms, I suppose. Then it would be, the Westerosi versus Tyrion. Anyway, back in the cell, Uncle Kevin was all like, yeah, but listen, Tyrion, listen, hear me out. If you do confess, your father will allow you to join the Night's Watch, Would you like that? And with a bit of luck, you'll end up with Alistair Thorne and Janos Slynt as your direct superiors. Both men with plenty of reasons to be fond of you, huh? And look, I feel your skepticism. Kevin didn't actually say that, but we readers thought it. But Kevin did go on. He said, look, I feel your skepticism, what with those being the very same terms which were offered to Eddard Stark in Book 1. Yeah, Kevin was being very meta at this point. But look, your dad, Tywin, wasn't involved in the whole Eddard Stark execution quagmire, In fact, he always disapproved of the haircut Joff gave Ned Stark. So there. Okay, this is probably a good point to inform you that these dialogues are slightly paraphrased. So now Tyrion is chewing on that, life at the wall. A harp is playing an augmented arpeggio while he's pondering. Life at the wall. Do, 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 do. When people are thinking in movies. Life at the wall, it would be cold, but it's the sort of place where, I would be able to use my brains, They're in need of brainy people up there on the wall. Lord Commander Mormont said as much. Plus there's a brothel in Molestown, so there you go, can't be bad. Yeah, think how interesting things might be if Tyrion does decide to take his father's offer and end up in the Night's Watch with his mate Jon Snow. Now you got to bear in mind that at this point in time, Jon Snow hasn't yet been arrested by Janos Slynt and Alistair Thorne. So says the most precise ASOIF timeline in existence. This spreadsheet you can find online, posted on Reddit ages ago by a user named Private Major. Now, well, I'm not sure exactly how I say they, because this document is probably more of a collaborative enterprise. I'm not sure how the team, arrived at this conclusion, but with all the cross-references they must have done, I'm inclined to take their word for it. So yeah, if you want to know, okay, let's make the point, summarize the whole thing. At this point in time, as we're reading chapter 70, Tyrion 10, the opening of this chapter, seeing Tyrion, pondering in his cell. Right now, Jon has just arrived back at the wall, the understaffed wall, expecting an attack from Mance Raider any minute. Donald Noy is still alive, so yeah, there's Maester Aemon. That's the situation at the Wall right now. Meaning that if Tyrion does decide to take Tywin's offer, he's likely to end up at the Wall right about at the same time when Jon will be put in an ice cell by none other than Janos Slint. Oh shit, can you imagine? In case we need to refresh our memories, Tyrion is the reason why Slint is freezing his ass off at the Wall, having lost all claims to Harrenhal, although he still likes to call himself Lord of Harrenhal. Oh, and to top it all off, Janos Slint's minion, well, right-hand man, shall we say, is Alliser Thorne, who also has his own reasons to hate Tyrion Lannister. Because I don't know if you remember, but Alliser Thorne travelled all the way to King's Landing with a creepy passenger in his luggage. Thing, that's right, he travelled with Thing. Remember Thing from the Addams Family? A severed hand with a mind of its own. In Alliser Thorne's case, it was the severed hand of a white, other zombie type thing. And it cannot have been a pleasant trip. Think about it. I mean, you're there on your way to King's Landing. You're trying to get some sleep at a roadside inn in the middle of nowhere, and there's this severed hand that keeps knocking from inside the jar. Imagine that. All the way from Castle Black to King's Landing, only to be refused admittance by Tyrion, who was acting Hand of the King at the time. Refused admittance because Tyrion never really liked Alliser Thorne for reasons. And Alliser's mission was simply to show the hand to the hand of the king, or preferably to the king himself, and just go, you see what sort of weird shit we are up against, huh? Back at the Wall. Not severed hands. I mean, the whole body is attached to these hands, zombies walking around, but nothing for days and days, Alliser Thorne was kept waiting, Oh, guess it's just me and you, severed hand thing, he would say to his companion, his gruesome companion every night, right before blowing off the candle and going to sleep. Until one day, he went, don't worry, thing, hand, I feel today might be the right day. Remember to look mean and scary, huh, like we practiced. Huh, okay, hand, knock, 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 hand, no, why? Because the hand had stopped moving at some point. It was dead. Even a white's other's hand has an expiry date. I mean, okay, it was dead to begin with. No, undead. Now it was undead, and now it's dead, 100% dead. So you know what I mean. At which point, Alliser Thorne, all disappointed, sailed back to Eastwatch. But he remained stationed there as a master-at-arms at Eastwatch, as it says here, in the appendix of this very book, A Storm of Swords. And that's where he started hanging out with Janos Slint, and the two became like best buddies, got matching tattoos and all. So yeah, my point is, it would be terrible timing for Tyrion to end up at the Wall with his luggage, as a new recruit, just arrived. Oh, hello, sorry, I'm new. What time do we eat? Where's orientation for freshmen? But of course, Tyrion doesn't know any of that at the moment. He doesn't know any of that, and all he's thinking is, life with the Night's Watch would not be all bad, surely. There just remains that little detail of having to sign this false confession that's really rubbing him the wrong way, Gee, I wonder if that final surprise witness is going to push Tyrion's decision one way or the other. Huh? Wink, wink. Of course, if you're new here, let me state my spoiler policy, okay? None. Okay, I just to make it crystal clear, I strive to keep these commentaries spoiler-free, but I do, as I just did, I do make references to past chapters and books in the series up to the end of the chapter I'm covering. but nothing past that. In other words, I'll be looking back, but not ahead. And while I'm at it, welcome, dear listener, to the rambling commentaries of an insane person online. We're reading A Song of Ice and Fire, one chapter at a time, and right now we are on Tyrion 10 from A Storm of Swords. Okay, so Podrick arrives to inform, Podrick Payne, he arrives to inform our Tyrion that the Gold Cloaks are here, to pick him up, and it seems clear that even Podrick is convinced of Tyrion's guilt. That's how efficient the spin doctors have been. Or maybe everyone is smart enough to realize that maintaining that Tyrion is in fact innocent is a risky stance in this Lannister regime. It could cost you a lot of social credit score type thing, And that's kind of how I interpreted Kevan's words in, I think, Tyrion, chapter 6, Tyrion 9, chapter 66, Uncle Kevin Lannister's words in the previous, there's a previous chapter, when he said, "I wish I could believe your innocence, nephew," which I interpreted as, I wish I was allowed to believe it. I don't know, my own theory. So Adam Marbrand out there to escort him, in the capacity of commander of the City Watch. He also believes the dude is guilty. You can see it on his face. And he's also a sort of uncle. Yeah, he's another uncle of Tyrion's, isn't he? Because his father was first cousin to Jane Marbrand, who married Tywin's father, Titus. So there, and it's when Tyrion finally gets to the docks, waddles to the docks. Tyrion always waddles. That George Martin. This is where George Martin, George R.R. Martin nonchalantly unveils, so to speak, the surprise witness, which is Shay. Yeah. Were you expecting that? Well, you've read the chapter, you were. So yeah, and Tyrion is going, oh, of course, duh. Question Sansa's maids. Yes, that's what a proper investigation would entail. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, well, it's all right, I suppose. It's not like Shay knows anything that could incriminate me. Is it? Is it? And look how matter-of-factly, abruptly, George transitions into Shay's testimony. Here, let me read you from the page. Yeah, they plotted it together, she said. This girl he'd loved. This girl he had loved. Yeah, that's right. They plotted it together. The imp and Lady Sansa plotted it after the young wolf died. That was their plan. Sansa wanted revenge for her brother, and Tyrion meant to have the throne. He was going to kill his sister next, and then his own Lord Father, so he could be hand for Prince Tommen. But after a year or so, before Tommen got too old, he would have killed him too, so as to take the crown for his own head. How about that? What a pretty picture she's painting. What a story. And she's obviously rehearsed the whole thing, because she has an explanation as to how she found out about this become a king quick sort of scheme, complete with an origin story of how they met at the Green Fork and how she became Tyrion's personal mistress, not to mention confidant. Of course, a whole bunch of details are retold differently, because you'll remember that it was Bronn in Book 1, Tyrion 8. It was Bronn who was tasked by Tyrion to find a camp follower, sex worker type thing, and then voila, Bronn turned up in Tyrion's tent with Shay. That's when we're first introduced to her. And Tyrion was all like, where did you find this one? To which Bronn replied, let me read you the quote. Thank God for bookmarks. Bronn said, I took her from a knight. A knight. K-N-I-G-H-T. The man was loath to give her up, but your name changed his thinking somewhat. That and my dirk at his throat. Ah, so all of that gets a sort of the whole plot, subplot gets a sort of like a makeover in Shay's origin story, which she now shares with the court. And in this new version, it wasn't Bronn who snatched Shay from another man and delivered her to Tyrion, but the mountain clansmen, Timett, Shagga, those guys. And it wasn't a knight she was snatched from, but a squire who was supposed to marry Shay when the battle was over. See, in this new version of the story, Tyrion was so wicked as to put this squire in the vanguard, to get him killed. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, this script has the fingerprints of Cersei and Tywin all over. First of all, think about this. Bronn is considered a hero of the Blackwater battle. He's being given a knighthood by Tywin. Well, technically Joffrey. And it's Cersei who has arranged for Bronn's social climb. His marriage to Lolly's Stokeworth, also a ploy to dissuade Bronn from fighting on Tyrion's behalf in a possible trial by combat. Because now Bronn has got too much to lose, So you see, it just wouldn't do to portray Bronn as an accomplice in Tyrion's plan that cost Shay her innocence in this new official narrative. So now Bronn gets swapped with Shagga and Timett. And the knight gets swapped with a humble squire to make this other switch more plausible, from a professional relationship, from a knight paying for the company of a camp follower to an actual engagement. But she wouldn't, simple, small folk girl wouldn't be engaged to a knight, but she was likely to be engaged to a squire. See? It's perfect, huh? Oh, Shay. You really are something. Get it? Because Shay means something in Arabic. A polyglottal joke. I know, smug. No, anyway, so the fact that Shay was Tyrion's reluctant lover also serves to lend credibility to Shay being, privy to all those details, about the plotting and scheming. And because when Prince Oberyn Martell questions her, he's part of the jury, and she goes, how could you possibly know all that? She just goes, yeah, well, he told me stuff, pillow talk. Once he even took me to that mausoleum dark room type thing, where all the dragon skulls are kept. And that's where he spilled the beans. That's right. He wanted to show off with all them dragons' heads, saying that setting was super appropriate, to a future king. Oh, and also he wanted me to call him my giant Lannister. Okay, this final line was definitely not Tywin's contribution to the script, because there's a throwaway line containing the Lannister name and provoking general laughter in the court, as it does, definitely did not please Tywin for obvious reasons. But you see how these lies actually work in this saga, also mixed with a little bit of truth. That's what makes them effective. We keep seeing this all the time. And Tyrion is thinking, look at all these scumbags laughing. I saved you all. I saved this vile city and all your worthless lives. Which is true, because, as Bronn has been given a knighthood for operating the massive chain that blocked access in and out of the Blackwater Bay during the battle, well, Tyrion is the one who came up with the idea in the first place. Okay, but before we move on to Tyrion's 15 seconds of fame, and since Shay is now escorted out of the throne room at Tyrion's request, because he said he's about to confess, let me spend a few words about this Shay character. She's a survivor, okay? We know that. And throughout her story arc, we have been given clues that this character will do whatever it takes in a tough world in that kind of society where she has zero power or influence, So I don't tend to give Shay as much flack as she has received by a portion of the reading community. I mean, remember the line from Tywin Lannister spoken to Tyrion in his same book? Tyrion 1. Cast your mind back, dear listener. Same chapter where Tywin was plotting the Red Wedding and informed us that some battles are won with quills and ravens. Okay, that chapter. Well, look at how the chapter ends. Here, let me read you the quote. This is Tywin addressing Tyrion. You are done with whores. Tywin's words, yeah, not mine. You're done with whores. Anyway, you are done with whores. The next one I find in your bed, I'll hang. And I think he meant it. And if, as I think, she was interrogated by Cersei's and Tywin's men, I'm pretty sure she must have panicked and let something slip. So A, she realized that Tyrion was no longer a convenient, guy to have on her side, no longer a convenient horse to bet your money on. B, the interrogation was likely to become less and less pleasant, And C, Tywin must have said, all right, I have a news ready for you. I mean, I rest my case. She saw a way out. She took it. Okay. Anyway, moving on. As I said, Shay is escorted out, and this is where Tyrion launches his famous tirade. Tyrion's tirade. Tyrion's tirade. Say that twice, real quick. For no reason. I enjoy alliterations. Okay, because this, my dear listener, this is one of those cases where the HBO TV series does perfect justice to the words on the page. Peter Dinklage shines here, and his performance is one of the highlights of season 4. Because when asked, have you got something to say in your defense? He just goes, let's find the quote. Nothing but this. I did not do it. Yeah, yet now I wish I had. Ha! I wish I had enough poison for you all. You make me sorry that I'm not the monster you would have me be. Yet there it is. I am innocent, but I will get no justice here. You leave me no choice but to appeal to the gods. I demand a trial by battle. There you go. Cersei, of course, is only too happy to oblige, predictably. We already knew that. She goes, yeah, sure. Yeah, Sir Gregor Clegane just happens to be in town, so definitely. Let's do this. Everybody, bring your families to the duel. It's going to be a matinee performance. But it's Tywin that really attracts my attention here, because listen to this. Lord Tywin's face was so dark that for half a heartbeat, Tyrion wondered if he drank some poisoned wine as well. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I think we're really in the presence of one of George R. R. Martin's famous threefold revelations. There's this famous quote from his editor, Anne Grohl, I think it's pronounced, where she said in a Q&A, now that I've realized his threefold revelation strategy, I see it at play almost every time. The first, subtle hint for the really astute readers, followed later by the more blatant hint for the less attentive, followed by just spelling it out for everyone else. It's a brilliant strategy and highly effective. And I don't know which stage we're at here, first or second. Okay, I know I did say no spoilers, but I can't resist. All right, if you are a first-time reader, cover your ears for literally 10 seconds. I'm just going to spell out this fan theory, all right? Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, now. Prince Oberyn, aka the Red Viper, poison experts, came to King's Landing with the intention of exacting revenge on Tywin Lannister by poisoning him. There, I'm done. That's it. At this point, as we all know, Prince Oberyn, very theatrically just goes, yes, I will champion for the dude. count on me for that. Yeah. At which point, everyone in the courtroom, the throne room, goes berserk. Yeah, Oberyn. And okay. Since it's not just the crowd in the throne room going berserk, but also we readers, because it's no secret that Prince Oberyn is a fan favorite, then perhaps it might be time to spend a few words on Pedro Pascal. You weren't expecting that, huh? Okay, so this commentary is being recorded in 2025, August 2025, and if you, dear reader, are listening to this in an era where the natural reaction to the mention of Pedro Pascal's name is, Pedro who now? Then all right, know this, that the actor playing Prince Oberyn, aka the Red Viper, in the HBO TV series Game of Thrones, was none other than Pedro Pascal. And the reason I bring this up now, historically speaking, is because, I bring it up now because it's now or never, isn't it? I said it in my spoiler bit. I'm assuming, dear listener, that you have at least made it to the end of this chapter, so you know that this chapter is the Red Viper's last appearance, and consequently, Episode 6 of Season 4 of the HBO TV series Game of Thrones was indeed Pedro Pascal's last appearance on the series. Laws of Gods and Men. The Laws of Gods and Men, that was the title of the episode. The episode where Oberyn, being a fan favorite, Pedro Pascal also became a fan favorite when we watched that episode in 2014, in no small part due to the actor's charisma. And if you, dear listener, were also there, if you also watched that episode when it was released on TV, then chances are that, like yours truly, you also must have thought to yourself, I like that actor. It's a pity to see him go. I mean, do you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing him in other things as well. Pause. Chuckle. Little did we know, right? or should I say, be careful what you wish for. Because as I said earlier, dear listener, I don't know if you are listening from an era where the actor Pedro Pascal has fallen in disgrace or in oblivion, or on the contrary, whether he is now your current ruler of the one world government whose jurisdiction extends, of course, to the territory you live in. Just a front, of course, the real rulers would be behind the curtains. But I'd say enough to have this podcast flagged to the thought crime police. You shouldn't be listening to it. Switch it off now if that's the case. So yeah, I don't know what the situation is from your end, dear listener, from the future. But know this, right now, or in the 11 years that followed Game of Thrones episode, the Laws of Gods and Men, leading up to now, oh boy, Pedro Pascal has been cast in increasingly more and more movies and TV series in what I can only describe as an avalanche effect, to the point of everyone going crazy, as in like, when is he going to stop, if ever? All of which having been amplified, of course, by every single media outlet who kept incessantly reminding us, oh my God, Pedro Pascal is so hot right now. He's so hot right now. Award yourself 5 points if you caught that reference. Oh, yeah. No, but yeah, Pedro Pascal is so hot right now, and oh my God, he is so like the incarnation of the ideal true masculinity for the 21st century. Oh, and then so you've had enough of that, so you switch the channel only to see the aforementioned Pedro Pascal, I don't know, an interview, a press conference, answering journalists' questions with answers like, oh, don't ask me that question. I'm afraid of your question. You just ask me. I'm vulnerable. You see, I'm fragile. I'm adorably anxious. But I do love how you have painted your fingernails. Oh my God, let's have a look at that. You did a fabulous job. Which really, as far as virility is concerned, I mean, Is that really what you want from Prince Oberyn, aka the Red Viper? Okay, I get it. Do not confuse the actor with the character. The character is the character. Die Figur is Die Figur. Haha, award yourself another 5 points, etc., etc. No, know this. 2025 is the year of all those memes, cinema goers filming the choice of movies at the theater they're going to, on posters around the hall and saying, okay, which Pedro Pascal film should we watch? There are 3 available today. So Pedro Pascal movie number 1, Pedro Pascal movie number 2, or Pedro Pascal movie number 3. And in the particular video I watched, I think choice number 3 was like the Fantastic Four, which has just come out right now. So one of those Fantastic Four movies that have been coming out every 10 years, 1994, 2004, 2014, and now, 1 year's delay. So there. So now you have a specific historical context. And no, I don't want to talk about quote unquote Pedro Pascal fatigue because everyone else is doing. I'm not going to use that term. Let's put it this way. Because I'm of the school of thought that if you don't like something, well, you just don't watch. What's your problem? If you're not a reviewer, you do have that option. B, I'm not talking about fatigue because just about everyone and their dogs are currently using that word. Or should I say collocation? Pedro Pascal fatigue is a collocation, 3 words. Ha. And C, because I don't want to come across as a hater. Yeah. Oh my God. Salsa Doom is such a hater. Can I do both an up talk and a vocal fry at the same time? He's such a hater. Okay, now that sounds a bit... sounds a bit unnatural. Hater. Anyway, no fatigue. No, we're not going to use the term fatigue. No, but I'd say saturation, yes, for sure. There, a more scientific, neutral term. Saturation. Actually, do you know how it feels right now? It kind of feels like that episode of Family Guy. Can't remember the title, where Peter Griffin is somehow given the supernatural ability to transform everyone and everything he touches into... sounds like a Halloween episode by the supernatural tone. He's cursed with the power of turning everyone and everything he touches into Robin Williams. Rest in peace. But yeah, whoever he comes into contact with turns into a Robin Williams character. Like his neighbor turns into Mork from Mork and Mindy. Someone else turns into the main guy from Good Morning Vietnam or Mrs. Doubtfire. You even have a genie from Aladdin. And the whole set of the serious Robin Williams characters, like from the Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, What Dreams May Come. And then you got the creepy ones lurking around, like Robin Williams from 1 Hour Photo, Insomnia, Anyway, to cut a long story short, soon the whole town gets overpopulated with Robin Williams characters. Wherever you look, there is one. Okay, so right now, it kind of feels like that in 2025. Wherever you look, there's a Pedro Pascal character somewhere. Or just him in person, giving an interview. It feels like living on the planet of the Pedro Pascals, Or I suppose the correct plural would be Pascales. Yeah, there it feels like living on the planet of the Pedros Pascales. There. Anyway, long detour, but I thought necessary because that's what these commentaries are about, culture and shit. Yeah. So anyway, back in his cell, because of course, Tyrion is escorted back in his cell. The proceedings are over, now that the gods will decide the outcome. So back in his cell, Tyrion gives us a theories and predictions moment, kind of like what you would get in actual professional Ice and Fire podcasts, like the Not a Cast, as opposed to this one. But yes, so here it goes. If the gods do indeed exist, then they will let Prince Oberyn slay the mountain. Gregor Clegane, and voila, justice is served. If they don't exist, well, then the Red Viper had better be ready to give it 110% because he's got an uphill battle to fight. Literally. Up mountain. And if Oberyn does win the duel, then oh boy, the Tyrells will not be pleased. In Mace Tyrell's eyes, it will be like the man who gave his son Willas a permanent disability is now responsible for letting the man who nearly poisoned his daughter Marjorie go free. And if Gregor Clegane wins the duel, on the other hand, then Prince Doran back in Dorne will be mad as hell for allowing his brother to get killed when he actually came to King's Landing to get justice, a different sort of justice. More on that later. So whatever the outcome, Tyrion is taking some consolation in the fact that he's really managed to make a mess of his father's plans. There. At the very least, whatever happens here, there will be a diplomatic incident. And it was all triggered by Shay's testimony. How about that? At which point, Tyrion starts singing that song. Remember that song the singer Simon Silvertongue had written about a hand of the king visiting his lover's house. Any resemblance to existing person being purely coincidental? Tap, tap, tap. No, but really, because Simon had written that song with the explicit intent of blackmailing Tyrion. And it cost him his life, because Tyrion then turned him into a stew. That's right, that happened. This series just keeps on giving. And Tyrion lingers on this particular line from the song. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. Which might just be a piece of foretelling. But I'll shut up about it for now. Anyway, cut to the next morning after a surprisingly solid night of sleep, and Tyrion has a massive breakfast of, check this out, more food porn from George, fried bread, blood sausage, apple cakes, and a double helping of eggs cooked with onions and fiery Dornish peppers. Dornish peppers are always described as fiery. Oh, Tyrion, eating that kind of food may not be the wisest idea right before attending a duel where blood will be spilled. You might not be able to keep all that stuff down. Just saying. Oberyn is also making some unwise lifestyle choices because he's already sipping some early morning wine. Oberyn. Also, what's more concerning to Tyrion is the fact that Oberyn is planning to fight the Mountain with a spear, which actually makes kind of sense. When you're fighting an 8-foot giant, donning a super heavy armor, I guess what you want is keep pricking them, while avoiding his long sword, providing you're fast enough. But Oberyn is confident enough. He goes, hey, once he falls on the ground, he's a dead man. Hey, check out this spear, by the way. But careful, don't touch it. Let's remember this bit, of course, because, it's not wise to touch the 2-foot long blade on a spear belonging to a poison expert. Wink, wink. That's right. He went to the Citadel in Old Town, studied there, and got a silver link under his belt. Which I know sounds a bit like a ferry boat company, but it's the link in a maester's chain which you are awarded when you pass Chemistry 101. I think it's the silver one, right? If memory serves. And the Red Viper just goes on. Hey, tell you what, when all this is over, right? Maybe you and I should take a road trip to Dorne. Maybe bring your wife Sansa, heir to Winterfell. Why, with you being the heir to Casterly Rock, you might give valuable advice to your niece Myrcella, currently stationed in my uncle's palace in Dorne. And did I forget to mention, she's the heiress, your niece Myrcella. She's heiress to the throne according to Dornish laws. Need I say more? Because she is Tommen's elder sister. So everyone is a heir to something, according to Oberyn. But especially the bit of Tyrion being heir to Casterly Rock is interesting. Is he counting on Tywin kicking the bucket soon? Because technically, as we know, Jaime is not allowed to inherit anything as a white cloak. Anyway, while Oberyn is being dressed for the duel, speaking of Jaime, this comes to this is an interesting piece of backstory, because while Oberyn is being dressed for the duel, he gives us a bit of a backstory, a sort of a follow-up to that trip Oberyn Martell and his sister Elia had taken to Casterly Rock, the one where Tyrion was a baby. We had a glimpse of that in the first Oberyn chapter in this book, Tyrion 5, where Oberyn is first introduced. And well, I'll summarize it for you. It turns out that in that visit to Casterly Rock, Oberyn's and Elia's mother had another purpose for that visit. It seems, or so Oberyn is telling us, it seems that she wanted to arrange marriages between her two children and the Lannis twins, Cersei for Oberyn and Jaime for Elia, predictably. Except that Tywin at the time said, "Oh, no, my dear, no, I don't think so. Cersei is meant for Rhaegar Targaryen, and Jaime, no, you can't have Jaime either. I have plans for him. Tell you what, why don't you take baby Tyrion instead, huh? The baby you just saw in the crib earlier on." Okay, we know how things turned out in the few years that followed, because in fact, it was Elia Martell who eventually snatched Rhaegar of Cersei. And as for Jaime, he took the vows as a Kingsguard, making it impossible for him to marry anyone. We had that in the beginning of this book, some bits and pieces from Jaime's perspective. Still the irony, am I right? And actually, Tyrion's ruminations at this are quite simply, oh well, it just goes to show, doesn't it? It all goes back and forth. Well, rather back and back. It goes back and back, doesn't it? To our mothers and fathers and theirs before them, we are puppets dancing on the strings of those who came before us. And one day our own children will take up our strings and dance on in our steads. There. Piece of wisdom and an insight into Westerosi society from Tyrion. No, but Oberyn has a point. With all this backstory, Oberyn has a point. He knows that the order to have Elia eliminated, not to mention Elia's children, during the Baratheons' rebellion, was officially carried out by that Amory Lorch, who eventually got eaten by a bear, conveniently. But really, the deed was done by none other than Gregor Clegane, a.k.a. the Mountain, and given by none other than Tywin Lannister. The order was given by Tywin Lannister. So yeah, Oberyn concludes, today is the day we see justice served in more than one way. There, I said it. And off they go, to the outer ward, which is where the duel will be fought. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Yeah, at least they're in the open air. Quotes from Life of Brian keeps coming. Right. So yeah, millions of people have come to see the show, families with snacks and all. And there he is, the mountain that rides, and Ellaria popping out of nowhere. I swear she wasn't there a minute ago. She goes there. Anyway, Ellaria Sand, Oberyn's paramour. That's how she's always introduced. She starts off that line of dialogue faithfully adapted in the HBO TV series. "You're going to fight that?" "I'm going to kill that," replies Oberyn. Awesome. This is the moment all readers of the series have been looking forward to, because a fan favorite, Oberyn, fighting against one of the most heinous villains, the man we love to hate. And standing in the balance, at stake is the fate of another man framed for murder. I mean, if that's not a page turner, I don't know what is. And yeah, everything about the Red Viper, his light armor and helm, seems to be designed for quick, agile combat. Tyrion sort of figures that out and figures out this tactic. Dance around him until he's so tired he can hardly lift his arm, and then put him on his back. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. And so the fight begins with Oberyn recounting to Clegane all his atrocities. Her name was Elia. You did all those things to her and her children. Confess. What during the battle, the duel. This is a famous scene. But the Mountain just goes, who? Who? What are you, an owl? Elia Martell, you moron. And you know what? The sad part is that Clegane probably doesn't remember for real. He's not just pretending. Just a bunch of lives he casually shattered some 16 years ago, and then he moved on to other atrocities. And here's a description. Let me read you that. The Dornishman kept circling, jabbing, then darting back again, forcing the bigger man to turn and turn again. It went on that way for what seemed a long time. Back and forth they moved across the yard, and round in spirals, Sir Gregor slashing at the air while Oberyn's spear struck at arm and leg twice at his temple. Aha, see, this is important. The Red Viper has hit the Mountain a few times already with a blade that is oozing evil, and everyone is on the edge of their seats. They look like they want to invade the pitch. The only defense being the 6 members of the King's Guard, which I think was a bit unwise, Why didn't they call the City Watch for that sort of security? So Oberyn keeps dancing around Clegane, listing all those crimes, and the Mountain is slowing down more and more, but he keeps hacking and hacking it. At some point, he hacks some poor stable boy's arms off. Not just one arm. What are you going to do? Occupational hazard. Sorry. The crowd goes berserk, and they try to get even closer, especially Clegane. After Clegane finishes off the boy, because he was making too much noise, you see. Yeah. So he slices him in halves. No, okay, but really, this bit is important. The noise, I mean, because in the meantime, Oberyn keeps going, her name was Elia, say her name, confess, etc., etc. And the Mountain can't stand all this chatter because he's saying, and I quote, "You talk too much," he grumbled. "You make my head hurt." Oh, poor sweetie, your head is all ouchy. Oh, no, but as I said, it's important because we know that Clegane is already getting a massive headache after being hit twice at the temples with a blade that's oozing pure evil. I mean, yeah. And not content with that, Oberyn pierces him. Is that the right word in sword fighting? Pierce? I don't know. It doesn't sound right. I mean, in fencing, what would it be? Hit? Just plain hit? So yeah, he hits him on the armpit, blood gashing everywhere, because that's where one of the gaps in the armor happens to be, predictably, so the person can move, And right behind the knee, there's another gap in the armor. On joints, which the Red Viper immediately exploits because he stabs the Mountain right there behind the knee. Stab. Yeah, I'm going to use that word, stab. He stabs him. I don't know. I'm a layman here. I don't know if stab is the right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, the blade went through the back of Clegane's knee. Yeah, and this is where Clegane falls on the ground. And remember what Oberyn said, he'll be easy to kill once he's lying on the ground. And it all happens real quick. The dude is on the ground, has lost his grip on his sword, rolls on his back, kind of like a beached whale. And Prince Oberyn proceeds to kick the mountain's shield away before bearing all 4 feet of steel blade into the mountain's belly. Ouch! Like that. So cool as a cucumber, everybody's going mad. Yeah, Oberyn. He's as cool as a cucumber. He just stands up again, dusts himself off, and we're all thinking, yeah, things are going Tyrion's way at last. Wow, this will be interesting. But the fact is, Oberyn will not be happy with just winning the duel. No. Or even scratching Gregor Clegane off the character list, No. He wants the man to confess. Now that he has a huge audience, all witnesses, he wants him to confess his guilt, and he wants him to point out the person who gave the order, which we know and he knows to be Tywin Lannister. Well, all of that seems to be a tall order, if you ask me. No pun intended. So, and alas, unfortunately, this is where he makes that terrible mistake. He plants a foot on Clegane's chest, and he's about to finish him off with a long sword. And the mountain uses a dirty trick to make Oberyn lose his balance. So when the guy falls on his chest, he grabs him like a lover. George describes this grip like a lover. And okay, they might be both on the ground, but now it's Clegane who has the upper end, the advantage. Because he's the one whose hands can crush a skull with 0 effort, which he proceeds to do. Oh, and at this point, he does confess. Unfortunately, though, we don't get any of those dramatic reveals, but he made me do it. Tywin, over there. No, none of that. And then he punches Oberyn right in the face. This is where the book and the TV series version sort of differ a bit. He punches Oberyn right in the face, and actually punches might be a bit of a euphemism, because George R. R. Martin doesn't even describe the action. He just tells us that there was an audible crunch. This is pretty cool writing. And then he focuses on the reactions of other people, Ellaria Sand and Tyrion Lannister. Ellaria wailing in terror, and Tyrion throwing up his hearty breakfast. There you go. There, yep. Told you. Set up, pay off. What does it say? I put my life into Prince Oberyn's hands, and he just dropped it. And dropping his own in the process. And with Tyrion being escorted to the Black Cells while laughing hysterically, the chapter ends. Oh, wow, what a chapter. Yeah, what a pivotal... Yeah, but to be fair, there's lots of pivotal chapters in this book. I mean, this one wouldn't even be on top of the list. So, what do we know now? We know that the Night's Watch option is off the table, obviously, and Tyrion may well be condemned. May get the death penalty, and there's no telling whether or not he will be executed, because this series, as we know so far, has never shied away from killing off main characters, be they or not fan favorites. Yeah, my grammar sucked at that point. I don't know, my syntax, should I say. Now, anyway, so now, if you made it this far, thank you very much for your attention, dear reader, dear listener, or listener and reader. And do all of the, if you enjoy this sort of content, do all of the things that people do under such circumstances. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to talking to you again, either in the next Tyrion chapter or in the immediate the chapter immediately after this one, which is the last Daenerys chapter of this of this book, which I'm really looking forward to. And in the meantime, I bid you farewell. Ciao.